This lesson is responsive design and layout for mobile devices. In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of the improved fluid grid layout feature in Dreamweaver CC. Specifically, you'll begin looking at the mobile, tablet, and desktop layouts that are created by default, and then you will begin learning how to modify them into rows and columns that are optimized for different size screens. First, you'll need to define a Dreamweaver site for your BB16 lessons folder. Upon doing that, you will notice that there are two directories, Fluid Grid and Media Queries. The files we'll be working with are in the Fluid Grid folder. Within this folder, you'll see three files: events, intro content, and secondary content. These files contain the content we will be using in our Fluid Grid layout. To create a new Fluid Grid layout, we go to the File menu and choose New, and choose Fluid Grid Layout from the New Document window. From this screen, you see three visual representations depicting mobile, tablet, and desktop layouts. By default, the width of the mobile layout is set to 480 pixels. The tablet layout's width is set to 768 pixels, and the desktop layout is set to 1232 pixels. Within each screen, you'll see the numbers 4, 8, and 12, representing the number of columns that you can use to align your content within these views. The 25% value underneath the mobile layout represents the amount of gutter spacing between the columns. The remaining numbers represent the width of the screen, 91%, 93%, and 90%. These percentages allow for spacing along the left and right margins when presenting your design. The technology that allows us to do this is a combination of HTML5 and CSS3, so we'll be talking about some of the supporting files that are created to do this. But for now, keep in mind that you will be creating a style sheet that sends different styles to different size screens. If you're a more advanced user and have either used fluid grids or a grid layout structure before, you may change the number of columns or the percentages to suit your needs. For now, we'll go with the default settings and click Create. When the Save As dialog box comes up, you'll be prompted to provide a name for our style sheet. Let's call it base.css. A new document opens and we're in the Fluid Grid layout mode. By default, we're initially in the mobile view, as indicated by the icon in the bottom right corner of the screen. Our layout shows 4 columns and a fluid div at the top of the screen. If I click over Design View to widen my screen, I can then toggle and switch between mobile, tablet, and desktop views. Before we go on, let's save our document. File, Save As, and we'll call it index.html, and we'll place it in the Fluid Grid folder. When we save our Fluid Grid document, Dreamweaver prompts us for a location of place dependent files. Boilerplate CSS is a style sheet that allows our HTML5 document to render properly on all browsers. Respond.min.js is a JavaScript file that provides responsive capabilities such as image resizing. If you want to learn more about what these documents do, you can look in the book and we will talk about them a bit more. For now, we'll simply click OK. Click the mobile size icon to return to the mobile view. Mobile view is the default view in Dreamweaver, as Dreamweaver is based on the mobile-first design principles. The basic idea is that when designing a website from scratch, you start with the mobile design and layout first, and then move upward to the larger tablet and desktop sizes. Select the default div inserted by Dreamweaver, and let's change the ID to header. Next, clicking on the div again will add additional divs for the remaining content pieces. We can do this by clicking the Duplicate button to duplicate the div header. Dreamweaver inserts an additional fluid grid. With that div selected, we can rename the ID Intro Content. With the Intro Content div selected, we can click the Duplicate button again and create a third div, which we will rename Secondary Content. We now have 3 fluid grid layout options that we can use to begin to lay out our page. Starting in the header div, select the placeholder text and delete it. From the Insert menu, choose Insert Image and locate the Organic Utopia OU logo. Next, we'll select our second div, Intro Content, delete the text, and click on our Intro Content HTML file. Press Ctrl A or Command A to select all the text, and Ctrl C or Command C to copy it. Next, return to index.html and press Command V or Ctrl V to insert our text into our Intro Content div. Finally, we'll add content to our secondary content div. Click inside secondary content, highlight and delete the placeholder text, go to our secondary content page, press Ctrl A or Command A and Ctrl C, Command C to select and copy everything. Click back over to index.html and let's paste that content in there. We now have 3 divs, each with their own content: header, intro content, and secondary content. Before we take a look at how these appear in the tablet and desktop views, let's add an image to our secondary content div. Click beneath Celebrating Vegetables and go to Insert Image and grab our beets_fluid image. Click OK. And now let's take a look at our site in our tablet layout and our desktop layout. For the moment, all 3 layouts look identical, the only difference being how wide they are. To illustrate the power of the fluid grid, let's go to our tablet layout and convert this to a 2-column design. Resizing fluid grids in Dreamweaver is simply a task of clicking the div and clicking the resize handle on the right-hand side of the div. As you click and drag to resize the div, Dreamweaver will provide feedback indicating how many columns the new content will take. Let's go with 3 columns. Our intro content block is now resized to 3 columns, but our Celebrating Vegetables block is still the full width of the screen. We want to move our secondary content so that it's up and to the right of our primary content. We want to move our secondary content so that it is located up and to the right of our intro content. To do that, we'll click on our secondary content div. We can click the arrow icon to move this div up a row. As you can see, clicking the arrow did not move the div up at this point in time, and that's to be expected as this div is too wide to fit in the remaining space. Again, we need to resize the div. So we'll click and drag on the right side resize handle, and we know we have 5 columns of space to deal with, so we can resize this down to 5 columns, or perhaps even all the way down to 3 columns. With our div resized, it now snaps up in the top right as we told it to do so. In addition to changing the size of our div, we can also adjust the spacing between the 2 divs. To shift the div over to the right, click on the left resize handle and drag. And if I shift it all the way to the right-hand side, I now have created a channel of open space between the left and right columns. So by a combination of shifting and resizing my divs, I can create my optimum layout. Keep in mind that these changes are only affecting the tablet layout. If I click back on mobile, I still have a single column layout. If I click on desktop, I also still have a single column layout. Again, the technology behind this is HTML5 and CSS with media queries, providing a different style sheet for each device. Let's save our work and take a look at how this appears in the browser. Click File, Save, and I'll preview in iExplorer. Dreamweaver has recognized that my underlying base.css file has changed as a result of the adjustments I made in my layouts. So let's click Yes to save those changes. And because our fluid grids are using JavaScript, if your browser's security is set to a high level, you'll need to allow blocked content. And as you can see, our window is wider than 1200 pixels, so we're in a single column view. As I click and drag the right-hand side of the browser, the content will shift until at 768 pixels, we snap into a 2-column tablet view. It's a little hard to tell, but as I resize, you'll notice that the beats image is also resizing. This is because of the respond.min.js file providing responsive capabilities in image resizing. If I resize further to less than 480 pixels, the browser again shifts to show me the style sheet for the mobile template. So that's it for now. In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of the improved Fluid Grid layout feature in Dreamweaver. This concludes the lesson, Responsive Design and Layout for Mobile Devices.